Farmer Ben's Sheep by Emily Swan. Once a farmer named Ben bought a huge ewe. An ewe is a female sheep. That ewe, he realized, was a real troublemaker. The sheep ate a lot. She ate 7 hours each day. She ate before dawn, at midday, and in the evening. She ate clover, soybeans, corn, grass, and forbs. Even with the amount she was eating, that was not enough. So, one evening she crept over to a neighboring farmer's field. When the sheep got there, she stood with her mouth open. There lay 2 fields. One was a corn field and the other was a soybean field. The sheep ate all of the crops in both fields. Then she went to the next farmer's field, eating all his crops. The next night, Farmer Ben found out. He was mad at the sheep, yes sir. When the farmer's neighbors found out about their crops, they were also steaming mad. All the farmers called Farmer Ben. One farmer said, "I was planning to use the soybean field to feed my own sheep flock. Thank you very much." The other farmer told him, "The sheep will have to go." He protested, but they didn't listen. That night, when the farmer went home to watch TV, he saw a commercial for landscape management. This is when sheep work as lawnmowers to eat unwanted plants. He didn't know when he drifted off to sleep, but soon enough he was in a dream. He was a child and it was World War I. He was on a trip to meet the president. When he saw the president was making sheep eat the grass at the White House. Then he woke up and raced to the phone. He called a company to come get his sheep and use her to eat the grass on the White House lawn. Now, Farmer Ben only has one worry, his angry neighbors. So he decided to sell his sheep's wool. Sheep's wool is fire-resistant, durable, keeps you warm, doesn't wrinkle, and is water-resistant. It is good for use in sweaters, blankets, and rugs. He knew that with the average sheep, he could get approximately 30 pounds of wool. With his big sheep, he hoped to get 70 pounds of wool. He would give the money he made selling the wool to his neighbors to pay for the damaged crops. Finally, Farmer Ben could rest without worries. I thought it might be hard because I didn't know a lot about agriculture at the time, so it would be hard writing about it.
Since we've done this contest, a lot of Emily's writing assignments have focused on agriculture and farming, and we actually joke with her. She uses Farmer Ben in many of her stories, so he's really impacted her.
It was fun writing it, even though it took a lot of drafts and it took a long time, but it was a good turnout.
We're relatively new to California, and I was myself amazed at how much agriculture goes on in California. Especially, we live in the southern end, so we don't necessarily see all the farming that there is around here. And so it was really exciting, even pulling up in the plane and looking down and seeing all the farmlands. So, that's something that we'll continue to learn as a family, but it's very important. We celebrated, we cheered, we're very happy for Emily.
It went well, except for my sister didn't win, so we kind of didn't want to rub it in her face that I did.
It was a little bittersweet for us. She has a twin sister that was a regional finalist, and she was a little sad at first that she didn't win state, but she's very happy for Emily and very supportive.
She was happy for me.
Guacamole in Paris by Abigail Patel. Once in Paris, France, there were 3 chefs. Their names were Monsieur Pont, Monsieur Vin, and Monsieur Escargot. They worked in a famous restaurant in Paris. One day, a man walked in. "Are you able to make guacamole? I have just moved to Paris and I cannot find it anywhere. I'm sure if you tried, you could make the best guacamole in the world." "Excusez-moi," "What is guacamole?" asked Monsieur Pong. "It is a dish made with avocados," said the man. "I'll come back for it on Monday. I'm excited for the results." Then he was gone with a smile. "We will make the best guacamole in the world!" exclaimed all three. They looked up a recipe for guacamole. One thing Parisians know is that there are no avocados in Paris. "Well," said Monsieur Escargot, "I think we're out of luck. It says in the encyclopedia that Fallbrook, California, is the avocado capital of the world. Let's go there," said Monsieur Van. "Stacy's farm is said to have the best avocados in the world." "C'est bon," said Monsieur Escargot. "That solves our problem." So they packed their bags and went to bed. The next morning they woke up and hurried to the airport. They were excited. They each were thinking separate thoughts. Monsieur Pond was thinking, "I think we'll have such a good time. I'm so excited I could burst." Monsieur Van was thinking, "I wonder what an avocado tastes like." Monsieur Escargot was thinking, "I wonder how big these avocados are going to be. I heard they weigh 8 pounds each." Then they were in Fallbrook. They looked out the window and stared in awe. Past the airport there were acres and acres of avocado trees. There were so many you could not see past them. "Well," said Monsieur Escargot, "you would never think that there were so many avocado trees." Then they got off the plane and called a cab and drove to Stacy's farm. "Bonjour, we are the Messieurs Pond, Van, and Escargot. We have heard that you grow the best avocados in the world and we must buy some." "Of course, I have a few ready to be eaten," said Stacy. "Great, let's go pick them," they said. Stacy said, "You have to pick them a few weeks early and then they will be ripened off the tree. I happen to have a few ready to eat. Please be my guest and stay at my farm tonight and I will show you my secret, world-famous guacamole recipe." Magnifique, they replied. They had a very cozy night. The next day they said goodbye. But Monsieur Pond had forgotten to put the avocados in a bag for the airplane. He did not notice. Neither did the other three chefs. Soon they were on the plane to Paris. "Au revoir, Fallbrook. We had fun," they said sadly. When they arrived at the kitchen, to their horror, the avocados were missing. "Sacre bleu!" they exclaimed. Just then someone rushed into the restaurant. It was Stacy. "You forgot the avocados, and how can you make my secret recipe without them?" "Merci beaucoup," they yelled. "A special guest is expecting the guacamole tonight. We insist you stay for dinner as our guest of honor." "Merci," said Stacy. The chefs began their guacamole creation. They had a messy time doing it, but they got it into a bowl. Just then, the man who wanted the guacamole arrived. He immediately tasted it and gasped. "This is the best guacamole in the world," he said. "It is true, you are also the 3 best chefs in the world." "Without my Fallbrook avocados, the guacamole would not be perfect," said Stacy. With one look at her, the man fell instantly in love and told her he was a farmer, too. Would she marry him and start an avocado farm in Paris with him? "I always wanted to live in France," said Stacy. While all the mushy avocado love was going on in the dining room, the chefs tasted their creation, and although they had never tasted guacamole, they knew it must be the best in the world. And they lived avocadally ever after. La fin. I am not studying French, but we did go to Paris a couple years ago, so that was part of it because we learned a little bit of French, so we incorporated some French. I have a friend who lives in Paris and he can't get guacamole anywhere, so I thought it was an interesting experience to write about because we have a big garden in our backyard, so I love learning about agriculture, and so I thought it would be fun to write.
Abby loves to write. She wants to be an author when she grows up, so we, as a family or as a school, encourage her to write creatively, and I thought this would be a great influence on her being able to bring in using language arts, using science, using our interest in learning about plants, how they grow, how it affects economy. It's pretty much you can bring in everything, and she was very excited to write about guacamole, which is one of her favorite foods.
And then the other part is we have an avocado tree, and we were learning all about avocados, so we happened to learn about those, and that inspired me.
Our class is small, it's both of my children. I am a proponent for agriculture in our state and also teaching children and people where their food comes from as our world continues in very various ways to, I feel, not be as expansive in the food chain. I really wanted to involve my children in learning about local agriculture, how it involved and affected their lives, and also to work on language arts, also bring in some science applications. It just was bringing in many disciplines into the study and supporting California.
Well, it was New Year's Day, and my mom got an email from Stephanie that said I was the winner.
We were already celebrating in a celebratory mood, and it just added to the beautiful day that we were having already. And we were surprised, overjoyed.
I jumped up and down and yelled, "Yay!"
My story's name is Trucking on a Tractor by Wyatt Black. "Wyatt, wake up," my dad said as he walked back into his room. I reluctantly crawl out of bed. I yawn, groan, and remember I had to wake up early to go drive the tractor. It's not that bad. You have a lot of alone time. I slip some clothes on and knot up my boots and walk out of my room. I open the door and feel the cold surround me. I walk to the shed, pull the dirt bike out, and start it up. I drive to the field where my work begins. I park the dirt bike next to the old 1965 green tractor. Its metal is cold in the autumn morning breeze. Good thing I didn't forget to pour antifreeze in the radiator, or the engine could have been cracked by the cold, I think to myself. I stumble into the old machine and sit myself down on the torn seat. With the push of a clutch and the turn of a key, it comes to life. I let it warm up for a second, then rev the motor to 2,000 RPM, rotations per minute, and start to drag the disc across the field my dad had just plowed. My dad pays close attention to the field when he plows. He always tells me to make sure the soil is not too dry. If it is too dry, it could wear out our plow. I snap back into reality and start to pull the disc behind me as it tills the dirt. Tilling is important because if you don't till, then the seeds will be on top of the soil and they won't grow. When you till after plowing, it leaves little rows in soft-tilled soil so the seeds can sink in and grow. I have this eerie feeling that I forgot to do something, but I can't name it, so I continue. On the start of the second to last row, I hear a faint screech sound, but I think it's just the old tractor speaking to me, so I ignore it. At the end of the row, it is now really loud, so I ease the tractor to a stop, lower the RPM, and shut it off. I hop out, hoping that I didn't do any serious damage to the disc. I'll get in big trouble if I have. I inspect the disc very carefully. After a few minutes, I remember, I forgot to grease the disc. I hop back on the dirt bike and start to ride back up to the house. When I'm back home, I put the dirt bike in neutral, hop off, and start to look for one of the grease guns that we keep in the back of our trucks. Finally, I find one. I jump back on the dirt bike and take off back to the field. When I'm back down in the field, I stop the dirt bike and start greasing the disc so everything runs smoothly. Then I get back into the tractor and finish up the last row. I shut off the tractor once more before I start the dirt bike and head up to the house. When I reach the house, I run inside and tell my dad about it. When I explain the problem, he looks a little disappointed, but not mad. He tells me strictly not to do it again. I nod as if I was saying, okay. You still have a lot of tractor driving left and a lot more next spring, he tells me. Yep, a lot of alone time, I guess, I reply. Just don't let your mind get away from you. There's still a job to do, my father explains. I still have tomorrow to prove myself, I say. Just don't forget the steps to trucking on a tractor, he says, and we both laugh. I grew up in a small town, and everybody knows where their food comes from, and everybody knows about farmers, and I was surprised that really a lot of people don't know where their food comes from. They just think, oh, there's a factory, there's our food. But no, it comes from ground up. There is maybe a third of our class that have a farm or a ranch, and they know how it feels to grow up on one and what the responsibilities are.
I don't live on a ranch or anything, but I know it's a big way of life, and for the kids to be involved and see that they're part of something without even really knowing it, having the kids connect with it somehow, and making it real to them instead of just trying to write a made-up story, somehow connect with it. We do a lot of research. In the past, I've had some guest speakers from the community come in, and we've taken field trips, and we talk about thinking outside of the box, not just typical ranching, but maybe soil. We had, actually Wyatt's grandpa came in last year and talked about volcanic soil and how it affects the soil. It was really interesting.
Oh, we were very excited. That I figured out because my friend Olivia, she was on vacation in Hawaii and she happened to check the internet, and I got a text from her, and I told my mother, and we went online and we found out, and we were pretty excited.
I have Wyatt third period, so first period I went online and we made this big to-do that it's announced, and so because you guys put it on at midnight on New Year's Day, so the kids all know that, and so we went and checked it, and we were so excited, and everyone was excited for Wyatt.
Everybody said congratulations.
We have a smart board in the classroom, so the kids, it's very interactive, and we were excited, and Wyatt was shocked when he saw his name up there, and he loved it. And the kids all gave him a big round of applause, and we went and told the principal, and then we put it in our school bulletin, and so he put it in his newsletter. Wyatt got to read his story at the board meeting, and so it's a big deal. I've had 5 winners for the state, so I am just really impressed with how you guys treat the kids, and you honor them and make it a big deal, and it kind of gives them a confidence that they don't necessarily get at this young of an age. So that's pretty impressive.
Farm Fun by Morgan Gravatt. There once was a little girl named Morgan who lived in the big city with very little idea about farming. One day, Morgan overheard her parents talking about going on a cruise. She was so excited to be going on a big boat, but she soon then found out that she would not be going. The disappointed little girl then asked her parents, where would I be going? They told her she was going to stay with her grandparents on a nice little farm in Oakdale, Stanislaus County. Sadly, Morgan complained about why she couldn't go on the cruise. Morgan's mom told her it was for grown-ups only. The way Morgan saw it, she would miss out on all the fun. A week later, Morgan was on her way to the farm. She watched out the car window as the big buildings got small and the city seemed to disappear. Finally, after what seemed like hours, she arrived at the farm. As Morgan got out of the car, her grandparents came out of the barn to greet her. They were so excited to see her. Her grandpa told her she showed up at the perfect time. Morgan wondered what the excitement could be about on the farm. Grandpa told her to put down her luggage and come straight to the barn. Morgan grinned as her new adventure was beginning right there. She turned back to her parents, waved goodbye, then ran after her grandpa. He led her out to a barn where, in a pen, he pointed to newborn baby lambs. At the sight of the lambs, Morgan's questions began flowing. Are more sheep going to have babies? How do you know when they're going to have them? Grandpa just smiled at the interest of his little granddaughter was showing. Grandpa explained that there are 30 ewes bred and they will soon have baby lambs, and that the ewes ate hay and grain to make milk for the lambs. Then with a proud smile on his face, Grandpa explained that for thousands of years, man relied on sheep for their furry stuff called wool. Some cultures hold sheep sacred for their wool. Speaking of wool, let me introduce you to Sasquatch, one of our Dorset rams over here. Morgan began scratching the ram's back and noticed her hands became oily. Grandpa then explained that the oil was called lanolin and is widely used in cosmetic industry. It is in tanning lotion as well as your mother's makeup. As the sun set on her first day, Morgan crawled into bed, exhausted from running around the farm and all that she had learned that day. The next morning, Morgan awoke and noticed that Grandpa was already outside. She got dressed and ran out the door to find him. Morgan came around the corner of the barn to see a little girl named Madison watching Grandpa trimming hooves. Grandpa smiled and told the girls that they should have s'mores after dinner. Then Grandpa explained that keratin and collagen that come from hooves are used in making marshmallows. The girls gasped,
but decided they would still like to have s'mores. The two girls became instant friends that evening. Morgan and Madison spent the rest of the week helping Grandpa around the farm. The highlight of the week was when the sheep shearers showed up to shear all the sheep. They watched as the wool piled up. Grandpa told them that it would be sold for fabric and oil purposes. The day was so busy around the farm that she lost track of time. Morgan was in the barn when she heard her parents' car horn honk. She looked out and realized her week was up, and the farm had to have been more fun than the cruise. As she ran to the car, she couldn't wait to tell her parents about the fun-filled week. She was sad to say goodbye to her grandparents and her new friend, Madison. She told her grandparents that she loved them and wanted to come back next summer and stay longer. Morgan watched out the car window as the farms became smaller and the buildings got bigger. She told her parents all the amazing facts about lanolin and wool. She couldn't believe that the lanolin from sheep wool was used in makeup. As she walked up the steps to her home, she told her parents she had had a farm fun vacation that was for kids only. I got the inspiration for my story from my home because I live on a farm and I love sheep and I know a lot about their byproducts. We've raised sheep since forever.
It is such a great contest because I love agriculture. I grew up in agriculture, and it's something that makes learning fun, and teachers love to have that to motivate the students. And also there's a goal and a prize at the end, and that really helps stimulate their interest. There's so many different avenues in agriculture, it can never be boring. There's many different places to go on the internet or different sites to read about. And Ag in the Classroom has a wonderful site, and they have a great commodities site that I used to help introduce all the byproducts to my students. So that was our theme this year, was byproducts. And that way they didn't have to just choose one topic, they could choose many different topics.
I learned from other people, they wrote sheep stories too, and so I learned about what they wrote too. Some people wrote about corn. Some people wrote about dairy. Their stories were really good too, and I liked their stories. And they were a little sad that they didn't win, but I'm okay with that.
The literacy that has to deal with agriculture is very important because our next generation has to become good stewards of the earth. So we have a wonderful school garden. We get to go out into the garden and plant all the time. Right now, we have started a contest of shelling peas, and each group of kids will get to take ownership of a plot, and they start from the seeds up, and the first team that can shell a cup of peas wins. And so they are out there every day watching, measuring the growth, looking at what is invading their garden, or just everything about agriculture. So they're learning what we grow in the garden, we eat. And a lot of times during recess, they're out there grazing on some of the things that we have grown before we can pick it, which is good. That's what it's all about. So that helps them understand, and it makes them become better, I guess you could say, eaters. They have they want to try different things. They want to eat their vegetables and fruit. So that's tough to get kids to do nowadays. So that's why we try to encourage that.
My story is called The Importance of Harold the Owl by Mary Bunn. Harold was a very curious baby barn owl. Every day he would look outside and wonder why barn owls were important. One day, while Harold was looking outside, he found the nest. At the same time, Heather, the farmer's daughter, was feeding her pigs. She saw Harold fall and ran to get him. Heather gently picked up the fluffy white baby owl and whispered, "Hello, my name is Heather." She smiled and slowly walked outside the barn. "It's okay, I won't hurt you." Harold didn't know what to do. All he remembered was looking out
at the farm animals. As Heather was walking, she noticed the wing was misshapen. "Oh my, your wing is broken. Are you okay?" "Here, I'll take you to my papa. He'll know what to do," Heather said. She carefully ran into the house. "Heather, remember what I told you. Don't run into the house," Papa said. Before you could finish, she noticed little Harold. Heather, who's your little friend?" "My little friend? Oh, you mean my baby bird. I found him in the barn," she quickly said. "Papa, he needs help. Can you help him? Look at his wing." "Heather, one question at a time. Let me see the poor thing." Papa was the local veterinarian, so he could examine Harold closely. "Well, look what we got here. You have a fledgling, I believe. This little one is a barn owl." He smiled and looked at Heather. His expression changed from worried to curious. Heather was relieved that Papa wasn't disturbed by her. "Papa, he doesn't look like a barn owl. I've read about them. I thought they have a white, heart-shaped face and a white chest with brown spots. Don't they have a tawny back with black and white spots?" she asked. "It's a barn owl, all right. Barn owl fledglings have puffy white feathers, but as they get older, those feathers molt. This little creature is very important, Heather," Papa said. He could save us a lot of money." As soon as Harold heard that, he knew he would find out why he was important. Harold silently listened. Suddenly, Heather remembered the wing. "Papa, his wing. What are we going to do? Is he going to be okay?" Heather asked. "He'll be fine. We'll help him. But remember, he's wild and we can't touch him too much. If we interact with him too much, he would rely on humans and wouldn't be afraid," Papa said. He went upstairs and got a soft blanket and some gauze tape. Papa folded the blanket and placed Harold on top. He wrapped the gauze tape around Harold's body to hold the wing in place and keep it still. They fed him little mice, worms, centipedes, crickets, and other little bugs and gave him water. That night, Heather and Harold were sitting on the carpet by the fire. Papa was sitting on his rocking chair. "Hey, Papa," Heather said. "Remember when we found the baby owl? You said that he was important. He can save us a lot of money." "How is that possible? He's just an owl." When Harold heard that question, he thought, "This might be it. I'll learn why I'm important." "Well, barn owls can eat rodents like rats and mice. They protect our fields. If we have a barn owl, then we won't have to pay for pest spray and pest management. And that could save us a lot of money," said Papa. "Also, barn owls can prevent diseases caused by rodents, such as hantavirus and Camellia. One barn owl can eat up to 6 rodents a day. Can you imagine how many one owl can eat in a year?" Papa said. "Whoa, that's a lot," Heather said. She thought for a few seconds and responded, "Isn't that around 2,200 rodents a year?" "I think so. Well, it's getting late and you have to start getting ready for bed." Papa said, "Okay, good night." It didn't take long for Harold's wing to get better. He could move, stretch, and flap it. Heather and Papa set Harold free. It took a while for Harold to start flying. He would run and try to jump off things. Finally, after the 4th try, he flew away. Harold landed on a tree near the barn and thought, "I'm going to stay here at this farm, and I finally know why I'm important." I've always liked owls. I enjoy them. I have several paintings of them. I like to read about them. And they've always been like my favorite animals, so I thought I could write an egg story about it. Before I wrote how they were helping him a lot, and then my teacher noticed, well, you kind of need to help them as little as possible because they don't want to rely on humans.
I love the idea of the story being a contest, and I think that's very good to encourage them to want to put more effort into writing a good story.
It's kind of frustrating because like you write something and then it comes back and there's like a lot of red ink all over it, and then you keep on turning it in. Oh, this one's better, this one's better, this one's better, and you know there's still a little bit more. But I was excited when finally there's like no more red ink. I'm like, it's perfect.
Teaching them how to write a really good story that's entertaining as well as educational and novel. I try to encourage them to write about topics that haven't been written about before.
For me, it was owls. For my friend, it was horses. And you got to learn more about the animal and how they're important and how people can, use them for agriculture.
I like that they do have to research a commodity of some sort and find really good facts and weave them into the plot of their story without making it sound too preachy. We have a really nice school garden at our school, so we do incorporate ag into our curriculum a lot anyway, and this is a really good way to tie the literature and the writing skills to our gardening efforts and just our ag teaching in general.
I enjoy writing, and it improved my writing, and I'm finally, an author and stuff.
The Tomato Charade by Truxton. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a town called Veggieville. Everyone who lived there loved vegetables. All they ate were vegetables. They loved rutabagas, Brussels sprouts, watercress, celery, and leeks. In fact, no one in Veggieville had ever tasted a fruit before. But little did they know, all of that was about to change. One early morning, Farmer Indedell found some small seeds scattered around his yard. Out of curiosity, he planted them. 100 days later, little green balls started growing on the vines. A few days later, they turned into red, shiny globes. Farmer Indedell popped one into his mouth and was surprised by an explosion of flavor. It was bright, sweet, and tangy. He had never before tasted such a vegetable. Farmer Indedell ran to town proclaiming his new discovery. The people of Veggieville went crazy over it, and they named it Tomato, in honor of their beloved mayor, Thomas Tomato III. The tomato inspired the Veggieville chefs to create new dishes with the tomatoes. They made soup, ketchup, sauce, and BLTs. They learned to sun-dry, puree, stew, roast, sauté, and grill tomatoes. This vegetable is the best. It is full of antioxidants, and it goes great in salads, cried Savannah. And it is low-calorie and is bursting with vitamins, added Charles. The tomato is even rich with potassium when it is fresh, exclaimed Lizzie. News spread quickly about the tomato all through Veggieville. The news even reached Dr. Expert, who lived in a dark mansion a mile out of town. No one ever talked to Dr. Expert. They did not want to disturb his science experiments. Dr. Expert was the smartest man in Veggieville. He knew everything there was to know about agriculture. When Dr. Expert heard about the tomato, he left for town to see this new discovery with his own eyes. When Dr. Expert arrived, everyone grew silent. He went to Farmer Indedell and asked for a tomato. Dr. Expert looked at the tomato, cut it, and inspected the inside. Then he examined the tomato plant and said in a rough voice, "This is no vegetable. This is a fruit." Veggieville went into uproar. They could not believe their ears. They demanded an explanation. "Well, you see," exclaimed Dr. Expert, "a fruit is the seed-bearing part of the plant, which is called the ripened ovary. The tomato is the seed-bearing part of the plant. Therefore, your tomato is a fruit." The citizens of Veggieville were shocked. They had actually eaten a fruit. They debated whether or not to keep the tomato. In the end, Veggieville could not bear to part with their new precious tomato, so they reconsidered fruits. The mayor brought back strawberries, oranges, bananas, and apples. Surprisingly, everyone loved them as much as they loved vegetables. Since Veggieville was now a town of fruits and vegetables, the mayor changed the city's name to Garden Grove. Everyone in Garden Grove enjoyed the delights of fruits and vegetables, and they all lived healthily and happily ever after. I always thought that it was really interesting that tomato is actually a fruit, but everyone calls it a vegetable, so I thought it'd be fun to write about that. I really like ketchup. I like to dip my French fries in it, and I like to have it in my hamburgers.
I sort of thought Sarah's was a winner from the get-go. I could just tell it had all the elements. So of course I get up early on New Year's Day and check, and Sarah's had won. So I did call her right away, which was really fun.
and I was still asleep, so my mom woke me up. And when I answered the phone, she said that I won, and I didn't really realize it, and then it all clicked, and I'm like, oh, I won, and I was really excited, and I tried to scream, but I still had my morning voice, so it didn't quite work out.
It was really exciting because she put a lot of effort into this story and was very proud, but also very hesitant about if it would be the winner, because she was competing against the last 2 years state winner. It's in her class as well. Yesterday was exciting again. Sarah got up in front of the class because I said she's going to have to read it, and let's have her read it this last time for you. And they gave her this rousing, round of applause and clapped and clapped and clapped and gave her a lot of confidence for today. So it was really, and I was telling her that some of the other students sort of quietly whispered, now I see that was a good story, and could tell that her story had all the elements and why theirs maybe hadn't been selected. I have good stock, so they say. Modesto, California sits right there. Most of the children drive past fields as they come to school, if not growing up on some sort of a farm. They're in 4-H. So I start with students that are already orientated and have some understanding of agriculture. And then from that, it's a great program. It really is. All you have to do is access the website, Ag in the Classroom. And you can get books and posters and lesson plans and all sorts of things that, if you can find the time in your curriculum to integrate, are really helpful. And then Imagine This contest is just fun because you can teach narrative writing with it. You can also do research. Usually I have if I have time, I'll say we're going to get facts and then try to put that into somewhat of a very short research paper, because what I've learned in doing it is they have to really have a knowledge of the subject. Even though if they're a great writer, you have to incorporate so many facts into it that they really have to know their subject matter to be able to talk about it creatively.
The Farmer's Friend by Cole Joachim. As the seasons come and go, while the dawn of days fade into the serene darkness of midnight, I stand, overlooking the neighboring crops I guard. The corn, which is planted in the warm and nutrient-rich soil during the spring season, grows throughout the season of summer when the children run freely around the farm. And the wheat, which sways ever so slightly in the cool breeze of fall, grows as well. Beyond the crops is the old weathered barn that houses the equipment that helps maintain the farm. As I am staked out in the field, I stand guard for the farmer who is sowing the kernels into the ground. Over the next 125 days, the kernels will mature throughout these 7 other stages of growth process, starting with the coloptiles breaching through the soil. When they're grown and ready to be harvested, a combine will gather the corn by moving along the rows and picking the corn from the stalks and husking them. National Corn Harvesting Day is August 19th. As the leaves turn yellow and orange and the season of summer converts into the cool season of fall, the winter wheat is planted. The first shoots of the wheat will soon emerge from the soil, turning the field from a soft shade of brown to a brilliant field of green. When the 11th stage of the growth process is completed, the field will be enclosed in a beautiful blend of amber and gold. The wheat will soon be harvested by a combine and shipped to a grain elevator to be turned into flour. Beyond the crops lays my favorite part of the farm, the weathered barn, which serves as a shelter for farm animals. It's the crowning jewel of the place. Through the open door, I can see the liveliness of all the inhabitants settling down in their stalls for a rest. The pigs, which are located just outside the barn door, are rolling around in their mud puddle, while the horses just stand in their stalls, waiting for their work to arrive in the morning. Each animal has its job and their purpose on the farm. They're like the oil to an engine, which keeps the farm running. As for me, I don't really know my purpose. I sit here and watch the seasons change, and the children mature into adults. Gloominess soon drapes over me. I am brought back to reality by the sounds of flapping wings of a crow. The sound gets more distant by the second. I then remember my purpose. I am the scarecrow.